Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Future-Proof Your EHS Compliance Programs with Dakota Profiler. My name is Bob Kimball. I am the Director of Marketing at Dakota Software. I'll be your moderator for today's event, and I'd like to start by thanking everyone for joining us. We decided to do a webinar on this topic because regulatory change is coming. With any potential change of administration, with the recent ruling related to agency authority, we anticipate both an immediate and long-term regulatory volatility over the coming years. Therefore, EHS leaders need processes and tools to keep up with and help them understand the impact of these changes so they can take action that ensures compliance and mitigates operational risk. Next slide, please. Today's agenda, which includes a presentation from our speakers and an overview of Dakota Profiler for proactive EHS compliance management, will last approximately 30 minutes. Due to the large number of participants, all attendees are currently muted, but we do welcome your questions. You can submit them at any point during the presentation through the Q&A window, and at the conclusion of the presentation, we'll address as many of the questions as we can. Last, I know there are a number of Dakota clients on this call, so even if you're familiar with Dakota's products, we think this overview will help you get a better understanding, specifically of the benefits of Profiler, especially related to some changes we're making around the regulatory alert service, which notifies users via email as soon as relevant changes occur, and it kind of helps them understand the impact of those changes on their organization. Next slide, please. Our speakers today include regulatory and technology experts from Dakota Software. Hallie Tucker is a compliance services leader who both maintains Dakota's regulatory library and has a hands-on role with helping clients implement the solutions. Cody Burke is a solutions consultant who helps to demonstrate the features and benefits of all of Dakota's various solutions and products. So I will now turn it over to Hallie. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. So as Bob mentioned, my name is Hallie, and I have a very unique role with Dakota where I get to work on our regulatory content and work with clients in their implementation and utilization of the software. I've worked in the EHS field for over a decade in several industries, including manufacturing and chemical. So I have some firsthand experience with managing compliance myself. I also have a soft spot for helping lighten the load for EHS professionals. So why is regulatory compliance necessary? Failure to follow workplace safety regulations can result in serious injuries. Non-compliance with PSM can lead to catastrophic releases or explosions, and failure to comply with environmental regulations such as air emissions controls and reporting can lead to heavy fines and public scrutiny. These pictures are just a few examples of some high-profile incidents that have led to serious injuries or penalties, both of which can have a significant impact on a company's reputation. Incidents like these are why regulations exist and also why companies have EHS departments, or sometimes just one professional, who work to prevent such catastrophes from happening. Even if your incidents don't make the front page news, smaller scale incidents or violations can be costly as well. In working to minimize compliance risks, EHS professionals also impact the bottom line by helping the company to avoid fines from any regulating agency or lawsuits from injured parties. In addition to the direct costs, such as fines, there are indirect costs related to failing to comply with regulations, such as workmen's compensation, lost time, and affected production. I know from experience that EHS is not considered a revenue-generating department, but they certainly contribute to revenue saving. Even if a company is found not in compliance, if they are tracking or managing compliance and simply overlook something, or we're prioritizing gaps based on risk, this is sometimes considered good faith and shows regulatory agencies that they were trying to comply and making an effort to do what is right. While this is not a guarantee with every non-compliance in every agency, it can make a difference on the final outcome of a regulatory inspection or incident investigation as far as the total fines or number of violations. Regulatory change is constant. What's the saying? The only constant is change. It's estimated that under the EHS umbrella, there are approximately 100,000 action-forcing U.S. federal requirements, with about 5,000 of them being revised annually. The federal government's not slowing down either, with some recent high-profile rules coming from the EPA regulating HFCs, PFAS, and GHGs. In my experience, the number of changes may fluctuate over the years, but the breadth of regulations is growing larger. Additional research and more advanced technology means there's a higher potential for decreased emissions limits, better monitoring capabilities, and improved control equipment. For example, water contaminant levels can be monitored much better now than was ever possible in the 90s. On top of all of that, state requirements, management systems, organizational policies, and local rules can make managing all of your compliance tasks difficult. I mentioned a couple of hot topics, but some recent proposed and final rules that will have an effect on many companies in several industries. OSHA, their unofficially proposed heat injury and illness rule, will affect essentially all industries within the country. While some states already have rules on heat illness, this rule, being at the federal level, will affect employers across the United States. EPA recently revised requirements for the hazardous organic NESHAPs, which includes tighter requirements for ethylene oxide, fence line monitoring, and operating and monitoring requirements for flares. For the synthetic organic chemical manufacturing industry, requirements have been updated for equipment leaks, air oxidation unit processes, distillation operations, and reactor processes, including a reduction of emissions of total organic carbon. As I mentioned with the previous slide, emission limits are getting smaller because we're able to measure and control at lower volumes than ever before. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, proposed reporting requirements for certain cyber incidents and ransom payments for any entity in a critical infrastructure sector that either exceeds the small business size standard or meets a sector-based criterion, including facilities regulated under the Maritime Transportation Security Act, chemical facilities, and those facilities that fall under critical manufacturing. The proposed rule would require reporting of covered cyber incidents within 72 hours and reporting of ransom payments within 24 hours. These are just a couple of examples of some recent but significant regulatory updates. So how does a global company stay on top of this and identify what applies and requires action and what does not apply? There are 5 key strategies that EHS professionals are employing to handle emerging regulations and revisions of existing regulations. Some companies have internal expertise, while others rely on consultants or third parties. This does require cost and manpower, which not all companies have the luxury of having. As I mentioned, EHS is not considered to be a moneymaker, so EHS teams tend to be on the lean side. Companies can organize the flow of work to be able to evaluate and manage applicable regulatory changes and compliance management. Corporate policies and standards can help companies focus on managing risks. For example, with a risk ranking system, this allows for prioritizing regulations based on their potential severity. Many companies are turning to software programs to assist and automate their compliance. Technology can help bridge the gap between the vast amount of regulations and manpower needed to review and evaluate them all. This graphic from the GRC Pundit provides a visual representation of an automated regulatory change management process. Obviously, very complex and not something a company wants to necessarily pursue on their own. To summarize, it all starts with new or revised regulations and sourcing the right information or content to be able to effectively review the new or changed requirements. The regulatory changes must then be reviewed for applicability to the facility or operations, which sometimes means multiple facilities or entire divisions. Some regulations also have differing levels of applicability, so although the entire regulation may not apply, some of it still might. If a regulatory change is applicable, there are sometimes things that must be done to get into compliance immediately, such as installing control equipment, applying for permits, or developing procedures or plans. In addition to those initial tasks, there are ongoing compliance tasks like reporting, inspections, and training that need to be assigned and completed on schedule to remain in compliance. Having an effective process to handle regulatory change from start to finish can make the difference between compliance and a serious incident or violation. New regulations are only part of the battle. The other is compliance drift in an established program. The initial person researching or managing a regulation is always the most familiar. But then as you play a game of telephone throughout the organization, or even over time, the understanding tends to diminish, which puts the company at risk of non-compliance. Having a central location with all of the organization's regulatory compliance information, including historical tasks, audits, and incidents, can prevent that knowledge loss or drift. There are also many internal processes that cause drift, such as stale procedures or outdated processes. Ensuring standards and procedures are up to date is the best way to reduce drift. Regulatory changes can drive the need for updating processes, but there can be internal drivers as well. The human factor that causes much of this drift can generally be mitigated with training and good leadership. The further a company's culture is away from compliance, the higher the chance of an incident. EHS professionals face many challenges across all industries, but some common denominators, no matter what industry you're in, are compliance gaps. Sometimes we know they exist, but do not have the bandwidth to comb through the regulations, and sometimes we aren't even aware that there are gaps. Neither is an ideal situation. Low visibility. If you've ever managed multiple facilities or even an entire corporation, you know how hard it can be to have clear visibility into the compliance status of all of your sites. EHS professionals need to understand the EHS related risk across the enterprise. And then there's unknown risk. Sometimes companies aren't even aware that there are laws governing their facility, equipment, or final product, and the Code of Federal Regulations is not shrinking, so there are constant changes on who and what is needed to comply. The solution is evergreen compliance plans that centralize activities and automate KPIs. Constant tracking of regulatory updates and automated compliance tasks straight to your inbox saves time and all of the painful research that goes into managing compliance on your own.
Okay, thank you, Hallie. That was great. We're going to slow things down. I'm going to take just 1 minute to conduct a short poll. Everyone should be seeing this on their screen now. And we do this because we like for the people on the call to kind of get a sense of what others on the call are challenged with. So this is a multiple choice question. You should be able to select all that apply to you. And then once everyone has had a chance to go ahead and make selections, we'll share these results out so everyone can, as I mentioned, get a sense of what people are struggling with and where their challenges lie. All right, so I'll keep this going for another 10 seconds or so. I see the results coming in here. All right, as we do that, I am going to change my screen share. Okay, all right, another second or two, and we will go ahead and close this down. I see some people are still working, so okay, we're going to wrap this up and we'll go ahead and share those results out. And everyone should be seeing this now, I think. And the highest one, staying current with regulatory change, was the top at 66%. And then it kind of was across the board here. Ensuring site staff understand their regulatory obligations came in second. And we hear that very often, ensuring that the folks at the sites know exactly what needs to be done and that it's actually being done. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop that share then. Thank you, everyone. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe I didn't do that. I'm going to share that again just so everyone could see it. All right, now we're going to wrap that up officially. And we're going to move on. So as I mentioned earlier, I know that most of the people on this call are not Dakota clients. So for those of you who are not familiar with Dakota, I'm just going to take a minute and a half to give a quick overview on who Dakota is and what our kind of unique our distinction in the market is. Hallie mentioned the idea of certainty, and certainty is really our value proposition for EHS management. Compliance assurance is where we hang our hat. So we have been in this space for 35 years. We came to market with the first environmental auditing solution. When we initially started selling the products, we were delivering them via floppy disks, CDs, and of course now we're all cloud-based, and we've expanded our solution set to include a number of different EHS management products, but compliance management is still, as I mentioned, where we hang our hat. To cite one of the industry analysts in our space for Dantix, they say that bulletproof EHS compliance system must be comprised of three components: the software component, a regulatory content component, and then a human component, the people who can help deliver the regulatory guidance and the EHS expertise. And that's kind of what Dakota's distinction is. And with Dakota, all these are, of course, they're integrated into one complete system. At the core of that is our regulatory team, who continually reviews, revises our regulatory database. It distills it down into plain language overviews, audit questions, and compliance tasks. And then they constantly enrich that content. So that's how we help our clients stay up to date with applicable requirements as they change and keep them informed. Central to this solution is an applicability engine that helps to TurboTax style yes/no, answering yes/no questions, identify what applies to individual facilities, resulting in site-specific regulatory registers. So again, as I mentioned, this regulatory database central to our solutions. It integrates with our Profiler product for compliance planning, our audit product for conducting EHS-specific audits. They share that regulatory applicability engine. And of course, no solution is complete without a task management component, which is we brand as Tracer. So compliance tasks flow between Profiler out to Tracer. Audit findings can be pushed into Tracer to be to close the loop on those corrective actions. And then we know things happen at the site level too. Incidents, observations, near misses can be captured in our Scout platform, and then action items, corrective actions can be tracked to closure in Tracer as well. All of this sits on top of an analytics and business intelligence engine, so our clients can get the insights they need into their EHS operations. And then we have a number of other products related to ESG, data tracking, a new product related to inspection management. We offer EHS-related safety and compliance training courses, but that's a lot, I know. So what our focus today is going to be is specifically on the regulatory integration between our database and Profiler, the related task management, and then the analytics and insights that come out of that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Cody Burke to give an overview of Profiler.
All right, thank you very much, Bob. I will share my screen. Okay. So, Hallie, thank you very much. Excellent job explaining the challenges and risks associated with EHS regulatory compliance. To be truly future-proof in your EHS compliance and overcome these challenges and mitigate risk, you need to be striving towards 100% certainty at all times that you have accurate regulatory registers and compliance task plans in place at all of your locations. The responsible persons are accountable for relevant compliance tasks and action items. A central EHS knowledge base is accessible to all EHS stakeholders. Timely notification of meaningful regulatory changes and their related impacts are present and available to all EHS stakeholders, and that you have full visibility into compliance status and overall EHS performance. As Bob pointed out, Dakota's distinction in the market is the ability to deliver this level of true certainty via our three pillars: regulatory content, EHS expertise, and software. You'll find that this certainty is color-coded throughout our products, helping users visualize exactly how our products deliver value. The first step in your journey towards certainty is to ensure you have accurate regulatory registers and compliance task plans in place at all locations. In our productivity suite, we call these regulatory registers profiles. Profiles are built using a proprietary applicability engine that walks the user through a series of yes/no questions. Brand new profiles begin with a domain structure that is entirely yellow, which is the color for unknown or uncertainty within this application. As the user answers these yes/no questions, the system will turn regulatory domain folders green to indicate areas that apply and gray to indicate areas that do not apply. In addition to documenting which domains apply, users can capture valuable institutional knowledge by also documenting why they apply using written explanations and attachments. Throughout this process, you can see in the bottom left, there's a color-coded profile gauge, which offers a visual display of completeness, highlighting what applies, what doesn't apply, but also what's still unknown or uncertain. So the system continues guiding the user logically through the next applicability question until all questions are answered and all regulatory domain folders are either green or gray. Once that is complete and you have that full understanding of regulatory applicability, it's time to develop compliance plans. The intent here is to document exactly what needs to be done, the role or function responsible, and the schedule for completion of every actionable requirement that applies. Many of our clients will work with our compliance services team to develop these initial profiles and deliver an initial set of compliance plans that can be easily pulled later from a template library for use at other locations or when expanding compliance calendars at your existing locations. While Dakota's regulatory coverage focuses at the federal and state levels, it's also common for additional site-specific tasks such as permit conditions and local rules to be layered in at this time as well. So all compliance task plans are then going to run on autopilot, creating individual task instances in the task management application, Dakota Tracer, based on the recurrence pattern present in each task plan. That automated distribution of compliance tasks organized within Tracer will help EHS leaders evaluate compliance performance and hold responsible persons accountable using filterable data tables, color-coded calendars, interactive dashboards, as well as automated email notifications. The database of complete regulatory applicability, explanations, and compliance task plans, all tied to curated regulatory summaries, then becomes your central repository for compliance and EHS knowledge for newly onboarded and tenured EHS professionals alike. Now, just because we have thorough understanding today of what applies and what task plans we need to be tracking doesn't mean that's going to exist tomorrow, because as Hallie pointed out, regulators often create, eliminate, or modify regulations. I think she said there's about 5,000 regulatory changes taking place every year. So staying proactive by tracking changes affecting operations is crucial. Dakota monitors these regulations for you and highlights these changes with each monthly update to make it clear and obvious what changes are affecting you. We also process daily email notifications for proposed and action-forcing regulatory changes. These email notifications are triggered based on each profile's unique applicability, making them truly meaningful and just another benefit of maintaining an accurate regulatory register within Profiler. Typically, any Profiler user that wants to take advantage of these regulatory alert emails will need to establish a regulatory watch at the organization level of their choosing. It's a one-time setting that activates a nightly service that compares a list of domains and citations affected by recent regulatory changes to a list of potentially applicable domains and citations in each profile within the hierarchy level where your watch is set. However, Dakota has recognized the importance of Profiler users receiving these alerts, and we've made the decision to activate the regulatory watch automatically for all Profiler users at the highest organization level for which they have access. So current Profiler users that aren't already benefiting from these alerts, you should expect to begin receiving emails in the near future that look like the one pictured here. If you begin to receive these alerts and for whatever reason you wish to turn them off, you'll still have the ability to. You can do so within Profiler, or you can work directly with your account manager or support if you have any issues. So what we're showing within these alerts, we provide the recipient with an indicator of the type of change, typically either action forcing or proposed. We provide a summary of the change, a link to the Federal Register where they can find the full text of that specific citation. The date it was posted tells the recipient when this change was originally posted in the Federal Register. We generally get these alerts out the very next business day. And for action forcing changes, you'll also find the effective date listed within these alerts. There is a button that will provide a detailed report that lists each profile and domain affected by the change that helps users understand the potential impact to their organization. Now, to kind of steal the words of Peter Parker's Uncle Ben, with all this power comes the responsibility to deliver actionable intelligence to EHS stakeholders. Dakota Insights is that application that automatically combines data from Profiler, Tracer, as well as our other proactivity applications into a centralized platform, providing that visibility into compliance and EHS performance. As far as I know, we're the only vendor that produces a regulatory preparedness indicator, which you can see in the chart on the bottom left. That gives EHS leaders a snapshot view of where each profile stands in terms of known applicable domains and those that are still unknown. In addition, holistic views of leading indicators like on-time completion percentage and action item performance can be made accessible at any time as well. So in conclusion, using Dakota's closed loop proactive compliance management process should give you the ability to move forward with certainty that your facilities are aware of all applicable regulations and compliance tasks at all times, accountable for completing relevant compliance tasks and action items, and continuously improving compliance status and overall EHS performance.
Okay, thank you, Cody. That was great. We have some questions that are coming in right now, which is awesome. We will address those in 1 second. I'm just going to launch a short survey here. This is just an exit survey. We want your feedback on how well we did. So please go ahead and take a second to give us your feedback, and we will move on to Q&A. So Hallie, I welcome you and Cody both to come in and address some of these questions. And the first question, I'll try to I'll consolidate these because we had a couple of questions related to type of content. Someone asked if we cover all states, so maybe you can elaborate on how we do states. And then someone else also asked how we capture county and local rules, which I know is different. But Hallie, maybe you can comment on that, and Cody, you can fill in.
So county and local, we don't include within our regulatory content. Those are kind of on the list for future expansion. For example, California with all the air districts. And we cover 49 states and a territory. So Puerto Rico, and then all the other states we have differences is basically what we cover. So where the state regulations differ from the federal regulations.
So to expand on that a little bit, Vermont would be the only state that isn't covered. So that's the 50th state that isn't part of our existing library. For any local or like the air districts in California, should you want those to be included in your instance of Dakota, that would be done on more of a custom task or audit question basis.
And if you have operations in Vermont, please contact us. Just kidding. Another question was related to audit questions. Someone asked if audit questions could be integrated into another commercial EHS software platform. Cody, you want to take that one? And I might be able to add something to it as well.
Sure. Technically, I mean, the way we've organized the questions within the database, you can export them into Excel. We do have some clients that just prefer to perform audits outside of the system in Excel or paper and go back and enter their findings into the system. So you can definitely get the information out should you choose to do so. Although you do lose a little bit of the benefit of working directly within our auditor application. I know I highlighted mainly on the profiler side, but auditor also features a regulatory change tracking component that you can visualize changes that have taken place from audit to audits. There's also features that allow you to create audits based on historical audits so that you can identify things like repeat red flags. And then of course the connection to Tracer, where all of your findings after an audit can be sent to track to completion.
Yeah, right. That's what I was going to say. I mean, the typical scenario is that companies would utilize auditor or profiler tracer as well as kind of separate and from other commercial systems that they are using, but it's technically possible. All right, Hallie, maybe you can take this one. Someone's asking if we cover agricultural environmental regulations like those related to CAFO permits.
In part, yes. A lot of states actually have differences related to that. So I know several states, we cover some of the specific requirements on the CAFO permits. At a federal level, majority, it's more at a summary level, I would say.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And then another person is asking how we cover regulations outside of the US. Cody, do you want to start that one?
Sure. So Dakota is an authorized reseller of EHSA's regulatory information. So any jurisdiction outside of the US, we would work with EHSA to pull that regulatory information into your proactivity instance.
Okay, I know we're right at the bottom of the hour now, but we can take a couple other questions if anyone wants to ask additional ones. And if not, I'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to join us. Encourage you to reach out to us with the information you see on the screen here. If you have any additional questions, I want to thank Hallie and Cody for putting those presentations together. And yeah, please let us know if you need any help. And thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.